really see and to shed anything that's no longer needed, that doesn't serve them anymore. And the way we do this is through ritual and through processes and creating a really safe container. Because in my own experience, you could push, cajole, bully, I'm not going to crack unless I feel that a container is really safe. And I'm using language that I wouldn't have used then. But it's like my system knows if I can open. My body knows if I can trust the person that's in front of me. I can see in their eyes if they can hold me and meet me. So for me, that's what we bring. And like you say, it's from meeting those parts in ourselves, the shadow, the darker aspects, the unsavoury parts. Because we're trained to reach for the light and the pleasure and the joy, and that it's an outside, we can get it from the outside. And for me, it's by turning and facing and really owning who we've become, that the joy and the peace that's our true nature becomes evident.
Yeah, and I totally agree with that we, as human beings, naturally move away from pain and towards pleasure.
Yeah.
And we live in a world where we're taught about polarity, good and bad, night and day,
Exactly.
black and white, up and down, left and right. But I've started to realise you can't have one without the other.
No.
And a lot of spiritual work is all about the light. But actually, for me, the shadow is as important.
Absolutely.
To bring balance and to be able to understand the purpose it serves.
Yeah.
But that's scary when you start talking that way, because a lot of people, what are you talking about? Embracing the shadow and embracing the darkness as well as the light. And it's something that come to me further on in my journey, because for a lot of people, because of religious constructs and societal constructs, it's that there's something very bad about going there and going into the darkness. But I've actually found that I've had as many transformational experiences dipping into my shadow as I have, connecting with the light.
I think it's more powerful because it's like, in a way, the light's acceptable and the rest is not. And so it's like, in a way, it's like going into the dungeon, so to speak. And to really, for me, the way I describe, a different way of describing what Gina's just done is to say that it's to go from the head to the heart and bring the emotions into balance and to meet in the heart of love and compassion. But in that process, to really honour those defences. Because for us, it's like the defences which some people may call the shadow, those shadow aspects have actually come into place for good reason. Absolutely. Because they were needed. And, at times when usually people are young and they don't have access to many resources, it's like, so a way to sort of cover them up is for the defences to come into play, to keep us safe. The masks, what we call the masks, it's like, for me, they're the protectors, they're the things that keep us safe. And what they don't realise, though, is that when we've got access to different resources as we grow up, we have more life experience, our brain changes, we have, access to different emotional realms within ourselves. It's like we can actually manage those situations in a really different way. So for us, it's like bowing down to the defences and saying, you've done an amazing job, amazing, and you're not needed anymore. So could you change your role a little bit and become a cheerleader and, allow whoever it might be to experience something different. It's like to have an opportunity to meet in intimacy without those defences being at the forefront.
Absolutely.
To stand to one side for a moment and just see what's possible. And that's where for me, it's like we always hold everybody as whole and complete who comes into our work. There's no broken person. It's like, but it's about bringing those things out of shadow, whether it be our grief, whether it be sexual distortion, whether it be, it can be anything. It's like to bring those into the shadow because they have the gold, the key to actually what we really needed back then. And often it comes down to what was needed. What did you not get that you needed? And if that need isn't met internally, it will keep acting out. It will keep looking for resolution within inside ourselves. That's why we often say, why do I keep doing that same thing? Gosh, I've got myself in that same situation.
Groundhog Day,
something's looking to be liberated. And
people end up in the same relationship with different people over and over and over again.
So unless we get the lessons around that, which is often in the shadow as well. What's term shadow? Even then it's creating that polarity.
Because for us there's no good or bad feelings, they just are. And our work is very much about showing up for what is. So, you know, people can come and bring whatever's there, and we don't label it good or bad. It is, and it's moving through. It's always on the way out.
I'm going to get to that. Shifting uncomfortably in my chair, knowing what's about to come. So, you know, just in terms of the work itself, obviously the two main programs are the Divine Goddess and the Noble Man. So what can
actually there is more.
Okay, you know, I know that's the starting point. I know the journey continues, which I'm excited to continue myself.
But they're like the entry points.
So they're the entry points. So someone that's coming in sort of fresh into this work, what can they expect to, number one, experience, and number two, accomplish by coming onto that program?
So I think our work's quite unique anyway. My experience is unique. It's like it does meet each person where they're at. So we have people come into our work that have done a lot of work, maybe been in therapy for 10 years. We've had, I can remember, I'm just thinking what someone said to us once, like they've been in therapy for 10 years and they've never achieved as much as they did just by coming on one weekend with us. Because it's less about the talking, it's more about the experience. And it will meet, literally, whatever you come for, you will get, in my experience. Everyone fills out their own questionnaires of what they're looking for, what they want to receive, and everyone gets that and more. So the workshop's quite unique in a way. It takes everyone on a journey, really embracing the more feminine aspects and principles. And again, it's not about masculine and feminine, but for us it's about the principles of what, like for example, emotions we've touched on. The feminine being more receptive, less linear, less goal-focused and orientated and driven. It's more about go on the journey and see what wants to be revealed. What wants to be revealed and expressed by peeling away some of the masks maybe. We have people coming for, if I think about the women's work, looking for more confidence in themselves, looking to really trust themselves.
To be more comfortable in their own skin, to feel less stressed. It's like they come with the, you know, the general things that most of us struggle with in our everyday life. And some women come with an agenda and then something completely different pops up. Because it's like once they get a felt sense of the space and what's possible there. And what we say to the women, it's like coming back into circle, sacred space, sitting in a group with sisters is the most natural thing in the world. We try to recreate this in coffee shops and it's like, but what we're really, really longing for is connection.
And sisterhood, to feel the sisterhood.
And that's a fascinating point because, you know, I live in London. There's 8.5 million people here. It can be one of the loneliest places in the world.
Yeah.
And we're not alone, but how many of us feel lonely?
Yes,
exactly.
And I think this is important given the society we live in and the way that we engage and communicate with each other. We don't have enough contact where people are sat together having conversations. We don't have enough physical touch. Like the all core needs that we have as human beings, many of us are not being met.
Basic, simple stuff, really. Yeah.
And often the men's doorway, I'd say, is around relationship with the feminine, because the noble man really is to look at the one of the key pieces to look at the relationship with one's mother, because that informs all of a man's relationships with the feminine.
It's their blueprint, really.
Yeah. So it's about looking at that blueprint and seeing, you know, where is there anything left that needs to be healed around that, or looking at relationships since then, major relationships since then. And really, you know, for us it's actually about the inner relationship between those inner masculine and feminine principles. I mean, the way that we often describe it is the masculine is the riverbanks, and that holds the structure and holds the place of consciousness. And then the feminine is the flowing river that then can go deeper because it's got the strong riverbanks. And so it's like and for that needs to be integrated within all men and women. And I think that's what the planet's calling for. It's like, you know, if we don't embrace the more feminine nature that we are, we won't embrace Mother Nature.
And that's the whole thing is Mother Nature, and kind of, you know, that there are so many sort of metaphors and analogies we use, ancient ones that refer to kind of the feminine energy, and looking back into history beyond kind of, you know, written history. I'm reading a book at the moment called Sapiens, which is kind of looking at the history of mankind, and up until recently, when I say recently, you know, a few thousand years ago, we were very much a matriarchal society where the women were the power in the society. It's only literally over the last 2,500, 3,000 years where that's changed. And that's where we started to see things getting out of balance. There's been more wars, there's been more conflict, and that's been escalating as we go further into this kind of masculine energy. In particular, over the last 200 years, that's all of our societies, all of our constructs seem to be built on this kind of patriarchal model, which just doesn't work.
It doesn't work for men or women.
No, absolutely.
It's like, you know.
Which is why men are killing themselves left, right, and centre, and women basically are stepping into a space which is uncomfortable for them, which is leading men to feel emasculated. There's this kind of whole conflict, and no one's happy.
No.
And on one hand, you've got women claiming that they want more equality, more power, and then blokes are not sure how that fits for them, and then like them kicking back, or there's a whole frustration. And the examples I often use are the Queen or Margaret Thatcher. Women that for a variety of circumstances had to step in a very masculine energy. Look at Dennis Thatcher, he was a raging alcoholic. Prince Philip was a classic example of an emasculated man. This is, for me, one of the big challenges that we face, is that when you have that imbalance, you're going to get a bloke that turns to alcohol or drugs or substances or cheats or whatever, because he just doesn't feel fulfilled. He doesn't feel he has a role or a place, not only in his relationship, but in society in general. And they find themselves lost. And I've been there, I know what that's like. To feel like I could be out in the world doing my thing, and I go home and I was literally, I had no power. I was with, I married my mother, or someone that was very close to my mother. It's a kind of an angry sort of woman that hadn't dealt with her emotions and stepped into the masculine. There was kind of just rage that hadn't been channeled. And I'm not talking about sort of feminine rage. I'm talking about kind of an angry bloke that will smash the place up and want to do damage. And that meant either I stepped up and got even more angry, and there's just going to be clash after clash after clash, and that's going to be damaging for both parties, or I had to drop into kind of that more feminine, trying to connect emotionally and the rest of it, and then feeling that this doesn't feel right, it doesn't feel comfortable for me. And I just found myself getting more and more frustrated, and then that started to have effect on other areas of my life, and not caring about how I showed up in the world, because I didn't feel like a man anymore. I didn't feel like a human being anymore. And and I think that was kind of one of the things that I've struggled with for a while, because as you said, like, the blueprint comes from when we're children, and growing up with kind of an angry mom that's coming from a place of frustration, often venting that, not being able to express our emotions or being comfortable with that. And obviously this is a template you're growing up with. But like with yourselves, I kind of went on this journey. I had a great gift when I was 28. That I used to run a business that I started when I was 24, turned it into a multi-million-pound business, won the Young Entrepreneur of the Year award by the time I was 28, crashed, burned, went bust, lost everything. When I say everything, not just the money. Most of the people I thought were my closest friends stabbed me in the back. The person I was in a relationship with at the time was cheating on me. Car repossessed. Like, everything that could have gone wrong went wrong in a short period of time. At the time, worst thing that could have possibly happened. In hindsight, best experience ever. Obviously, didn't feel like it at the time, because I basically had a bit of a breakdown and locked myself away from the world. Sat in the depths of my darkness and this deep dark valley in my life. Got to the point where I was like, what's the point? There's nothing left to live for. So I actually did swallow a bottle of pills. I only actually started sharing that part of the story. The first time I ever shared it publicly was April this year, because that was my dirty secret. And I thought, well, hold on a minute, this is the problem, that people have these experiences. I remember, like, me and my ex had 5 miscarriages. Nobody talks about those things. And then it's only when you kind of talk about it, it's like how common that is, but you feel like you're the only one that's ever had this experience. And again, for me, when I went through that for many, many years, I'm the only one. It was actually like, it's astounding the amount of people have either felt that, tried it, or have been successful, actually sort of taking their own life. And again, I think it's like the whole societal construct we have around people taking their own lives. Up until now, people still call it committing suicide. A lot of people don't appreciate why it's called committing suicide, because you're committing a crime. If someone's threatening to take their own life, who do you call? The police, because they're about to commit a criminal act. So we've criminalised mental health for people that are emotionally marginalised. So this again was like something that I didn't really fully appreciate at the time, because the people who came to see me when I had that experience was the police, because I was attempting to commit a crime. So anyway, kind of came out from that experience, and you hit rock bottom. There's only one place you can go, which is back up again. So it took a while before I started to realise, actually, you know, I'm in this deep dark valley of my life. I want to be back on top of the world. It was only a few months before that I was master my own destiny, captain my own ship, you know, driving around in a fancy sports car and earning more money than I had sense, and you know, members of some of the fanciest nightclubs in London, and just, you know, it was ridiculous. And I understand now why the universe decided to put a baseball bat around my head, because I was living the Wolf of Wall Street type existence. If you've seen the movie, it was crazy, and the course correction was due. And the only thing I think about is how do I get myself back on top of the world again, and being quite a literal person, I thought I'll go to the highest place I can think of. The highest place I could think of was Mount Everest. So, long story for another day. In 2003 I decided to go out to the Himalayas to attempt to climb Mount Everest. I did manage to get more than halfway up. But it was William Blake that said, when mountains meet, strange things happen that don't happen when you're jostling in the street. And it's fascinating, because I come from a decidedly non-religious household. You know, growing up, the main religion in my household was Liverpool Football Club, because my dad was mad into football. And you know, then actually going through a period in my teens where I was an atheist. I didn't believe in God. I thought, this is it. And then all of a sudden, being in the Himalayas and having a profound spiritual experience where you meet the spirit of the mountain, and she's got you on your hands and knees, crying your eyes out and telling you why you just had this experience, and it's the greatest gift, and you should be grateful because this is what you needed to experience to do what you came here to do. And it's just like, you know, I thought I'd gone mad at that point. I thought I finally lost it, because I got a voice in my head talking to me. It was a woman as well. It was a feminine voice. And I think that's kind of, for me, was probably my most profound life-changing moment, because it changed the course of my life. At that moment, I knew exactly why I had this experience, and I knew that this was a gift, and I had that experience so I could then do something to help other people that go through the same kind of thing. That was in 2003. The problem was a fraction of what it is today. I had no idea what was to come. But I came back with this commitment to, you know, doing something, to starting the Stress Management Society. I had no idea what that really meant or what that was going to be about. But just because you've now chosen this new path doesn't mean all of a sudden your life gets easier. In fact, it gets harder. And over the years, you know, more challenges were presented. You know, the person I was in a relationship with, when everything went wrong, I forgave her because that was the only part of my old life that I was still holding on to. And we ended up getting married, and we had this turbulent relationship for many, many years. But through that period, I realised that actually I can only help other people if I help myself. So I went through this whole journey of exploration of personal development, doing all kinds of different courses and travelling around the world and spending thousands and thousands of pounds on courses in education, so I could learn and help myself so I could help other people. And that journey continued for many, many years until my relationship broke up in 2012, finally, after. It should have happened many years before that, but I held on for as long as I could. And when that happened, that's when my journey really, really deepened. So during that period, I'd done a lot of work around relationship with my mother, because I realised a lot of these templates were from childhood. You know, the fact that I was bullied, low self-esteem, low confidence, that putting on this external image didn't match up the internal. Externally extrovert, internally like a shy little scared boy. And then going through this kind of whole journey, which led to the relationship breaking up, and then really having to face up to that. And the first thing that presented itself for me was to go off and do a Vipassana, which is like a 10-day silent meditation retreat, which is like, I need some time to get to know myself and really connect myself deeply. Scariest fucking thing I've ever done in my life. Hardest thing I've ever done in my life. It's a 10-day course, spent the first 5 days thinking about food and sex and nothing else. It was just like, where's the enlightenment? Where's the spirituality? But that then journey continued to doing shamanic work, to doing all kinds of different things and exploring kind of different pathways to lead to the same place, which is connection with self. And that led up right until the end of last year, where I kind of had a bit of a turbulent time, but at the end of last year I felt like it was a really good place. But this time last year, it's like, I feel great. Finally, I've got through some serious challenges. We just bought this office. We just literally got to a point where that we've moved in here. It's like we've been through this, you know, divorce, having to pay my ex-wife off a huge amount of money, but getting all that clear, and it was just like a huge, huge weight off my shoulders and headspace. So I'm going to celebrate, I'm going to go on holiday, I'm going to go off to Iceland, always want to see the Northern Lights. So this is a point where it's just like, yeah, everything's great. Went to Iceland, having a fantastic time, and the night I was going to see the Northern Lights. So this is like New Year's Eve, or the day before New Year's Eve. And I was just honestly having one of the best holidays of my life. It's just an incredible place, Iceland. And we were on this tour bus on the way to see the Northern Lights, and the bus got into an accident, and I broke my back.
Wow.
I was the only person on the whole bus that got injured. Everyone else was fine. And literally I kind of, got wheeled off in an ambulance, couldn't move my legs, absolutely shitting myself that I'd never walk again, morphine up to the eyeballs. 3 days later got air ambulance back, and it's like, what, how, where did that just come from? Then I got back, and 3 days later my dad was taking me somewhere. Dad's a great driver. And he hit a traffic island, like, he didn't see it. It's like, Dad's one of the best drivers I know. It's like, okay, this is strange. And then a couple of weeks after that, I got into a bit of an incident where I twisted my knee and was hobbling around for weeks. Then I was pulling out my driveway 3 months later, another major accident, like someone speeding down the road, smashed my car into another car. I was like, okay, this is more than a coincidence. Then I did another Vipassana and a few other things happened, and then I got a skin infection and I ignored it for ages. It was just a rash, and got to the point where I was like open bleeding sores, and I went to hospital and I was like, you're lucky you came here today, because it was a staph infection, which if I left it any longer it would have become infected and it could have killed me. It was like, okay. And this was continuing. I was like, okay, what's going on here? Now the backstory is just when I was starting to have this experience before I went away to Iceland, where things were getting good, a friend of mine, Andrew, had been to your workshop September of last year, so the year before, and he told me about it, and he's like, Neil, you have to go. And it's like, okay, but it's about the feminine, and I'm okay with that, I've done that work, and I'm okay, as much as my mum's never kind of taken responsibility for the experience, we've had the conversation, I'm okay with it, I've made peace with it, so I don't know if I need that work. He's like, no, you have to go. I was like, okay. So I signed up for it, I remember sort of communicating with you guys, and then forgot about it, because couldn't get on the one in April, so it was September, it was like ages away, so didn't even think about it. So I kind of had this experience, and then the summer progressed, and I had some other kind of random experience in the summer, and then I remember I was away for a week on a retreat in Wales, and I got back, and the day I got back, it was the 31st of August, and England were playing Malta at Wembley Stadium. My dad was watching it, so 31st or 1st of September, I can't remember the exact date. So I went round, because I was with my dad and mum at the time, so I went round and watched the game with him. We sat down and watched the game. Had a lot of fun, had a bit of laugh, he was in high form, good spirits, and then went home. 3 hours later, get a phone call from my mum, she's like, shit, you better come around, something really bad's happened. So it's like 1 o'clock in the morning, and I was absolutely shattered because I'd been on a retreat for a week, and I was just needing time for reintegration and sleep and rest. So I kind of got out half asleep, went round, and I don't know what happened. My dad basically had a brain hemorrhage, and it was just like, hold on a minute, I went through all of this challenge and all this hardship to get to a good place, and it's just literally just like someone's just hacking away over and over again. And so anyway, like we went through 2 weeks of him being really poorly, and then sadly, like we got to a point where we realised he wasn't going to recover, and we had to turn the machine off, which was even harder than him just dying, because I felt like I had to take responsibility for the fact that I had to make the choice to end his life, even though that it was the right thing to do. And that was September the 16th. That was literally a few weeks before your course. And up until that point, at first I hadn't thought much about it. And then earlier in the year, I was like, okay, yeah, this is going to be good. I'm looking forward to this. Then I got to a point where it's like, I so don't want to do this. I'm so not in the right place for this at all. Because, and I didn't do what my dad would have done or other people would have done. Like when it happened, I did allow myself to express my emotions, and I spent a lot of time like breaking down and crying, and I was okay with that. And then, this came up, and the week before I remember just feeling like, I can't do this, I've had so much time off work, I'm not in the right headspace, I'm angry, I'm frustrated, it's just like, I don't need this right now, I'm not ready for this, and I had a headache, and I was, every excuse, resistance, I'm really resisting this. But I was obviously coming with one of my really good mates, Daniel, and he was like, look, Neil, I'm the same, but we just got to, and he'd really booked the ferry, so I was like, okay. And I came there, and I was like, number one, I'm not sure if I wanted to be there. Number two, I was a little bit resistant. And number three, I just felt that a lot of the work that I expected to do, I thought I was right with it. So it's just like, you know, like, why am I actually here? And also, based on, you know, I know quite a few people that have been through your course now. So Andrew and Joanna and a few other people that I've spoken to over time, and Pav, who's one of your facilitators, I know very well because we've assisted at other retreats together. So, you know, through the people I've spoken to, I had an expectation of what might happen, but I also had an expectation of yourselves. And like, forgive me, I'm going to be perfectly candid here, because I've kind of built with this image in my head of what you might be like. And I remember turning out and I was like, really? And forgive me, I don't say that with any kind of disrespect, but you were so different to how I expected you to be. So I kind of turned out the first night and I was like, all right, and then it was like, all right, we're here. You know, I'm just gonna just go with it, whatever it is. Like, just be present, you know, do everything you practice. And there were a few times I was just like, not physically but emotionally thinking about sort of running away and just checking. I'm really good at that. I'll play the part. I'm here, but I'm not really. I could do that really well. But there's something about that circle and the space and the energy you created, where all of the stuff, all the experiences, all the things that I'd faced, all of a sudden just all came together in that moment, and I was faced to sit with it, to be present with it. I remember starting to feel that the first night. And then it was the second day, there was a process where I started to realise that through my whole life, I've never really allowed myself to feel safe. I put this mask on, and it's interesting you were talking about the mask, Gina. The mask was so deep, I didn't even know it was a mask. And when I tried to take it off, it was like I was taking my fucking skin off. Like, I'm not taking a mask off, I'm taking my face off. Because that's how deeply embedded and how attached it was to me. And the pain of actually being able to remove it was incredible. And opening up boxes filled with emotion that I didn't even know was there. It was so deeply buried, because, you know, any bloke that's listening will understand that we do things in boxes. You've only got one box open at a time. If you're watching football, you're watching football. You can't think about anything else, do you know what I mean? If you're kind of eating your food, that's it. You can focus on the one thing in front of you, and anything else is really difficult. And sometimes, because we've got these boxes that we're used to opening, you know, we're fine, we can open that box, we can deal with it and put it away. There are some boxes that we never open, and after a while they get covered in dust and they get things laid on top of them, and then you forget that they're there. And some of those boxes opened for me. And the first day was, you know, some of the processes that we did with Gina, and I don't even know where that came from. I don't even know, to this day I don't know what it was. But I know that it was deep. And I felt things that I'd never felt before. And I'd like to think, given the work that I do and who I am as a person, that I allow myself to go into emotion. I'd like to think I'm quite sensitive and empathetic, because I have to be with the work that I do. A whole nother level. And then the next day with the big process, it was just, I can't even begin to describe the kind of things that came up. And there have been many things that I've done which have been facilitated in very different ways, you know, shamanic experiences, or time where you're disconnected for extended periods of time to really connect deeply with yourself. But to be able to create a space where you can go there and feel okay and safe to go there and feel supported is something that's rare. And it's amazing for me how many people in life, myself included, go through life not feeling enough, not feeling worthy, not feeling loved, and not feeling safe. And ultimately, it's kind of core fundamental human needs which we don't get met.
That's often what we talk about, is the fact is that I think that that's one of the gifts of the circle and the space, is that for whoever it is, it will be a different, have a slightly different flavour or essence to it, but it is about being met in a way that you've never been met before. And you, in a way, you know it's missing, but you don't know what it is because you've never experienced it.
We don't know what we don't know.
No, exactly. And so that's why it's really hard to explain. It's like when we you know, people ask us that question often, and it's, you know, and the best thing is, it's like you something inside of you knows exactly what you need, and that is recreated because you're authentic in the moment, and you get to receive what you, in a way, what you've always longed for.
And for me, what happens is, like, once I recognise it on the outside, or I've had a felt sense of it internally, it's like that's what safety feels like. That's what tenderness feels like. That's what being met feels like. It's like where I'd never experienced that. I didn't have an internal resource to kind of name it, but I recognised it in an instant.
And then you can give it to yourself.
Yeah.
Because now you've experienced it, it's like then you've got that whole level of holding inside yourself. And then that allows literally all of the stress and defences that are there to try and protect, they just fall away.
Just
because they're not needed.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
I want to say I just felt really touched by what you shared and the level that you allowed yourself to be received and met. You know, and as you were speaking, I was reminded of being with you in circle, and I just felt really touched by your sharing. Thank you.
And thank you so much again for the wonderful work you do, and also, you know, for allowing me to feel safe enough to face up to my pain. And you know, that it's a powerful thing, and that's one of the things I wanted to discuss with you. Is something we're all scared to do. The power of facing up to our pain, and you know, the kind of the frustrations and grief and anger that we bottled up, and why that's so important. And for you, in your experience, what, you know, why is that something that we do need to consider? And taking this away from that kind of whole new age hippie thing of like, oh, let's face our pain, you know, let's sit in circle and hold hands and sing Kumbaya, because it's not that at all.
It's interesting because I wanted to acknowledge you for your love for your father, because I really feel that. Your love for him and your gratitude for him. And for me, it's the other side of that. It's like without us really acknowledging the grief and the loss, really it's love. It's the other side of the coin of love. It's like to truly love somebody means that at some point there is likely to be pain in whatever way that may manifest itself. So it's like when we love deeply, the other side, to love deeply, it's like we need to acknowledge the pain that is likely to be the other side of that as well. And it's like for me, it's like this thing, you can't have one without the other. It's like for me, the pain is a byproduct if we allow ourselves to really experience the grief, the loss, the missing somebody, the love that you felt for them, the regrets for the times that maybe you didn't give them your whole self. It's like it's like you will not experience the love and joy that's on the other side.
No, I absolutely agree, and I found that actually it's through some of the biggest heartaches that the biggest opportunities for growth come. It's like you break your leg. When it heals stronger than it was before it broke, and it's highly unlikely you'll ever break your leg in the same place. For me, the heart is the same if you allow yourself to heal. And that's the key thing, because if you've broken your leg and you keep running on it and keep stamping on it and jumping around, it's never going to heal. And if you allow your heart to heal genuinely from the heartaches I've experienced in my life, it does heal stronger than it was before you had that experience.
And often the healing comes in the feeling
Yeah.
of whatever that might be, in all of its many layers. And it's like, and sometimes for me, can't always name the feeling that's there, but it's there. It's like it's what's coming through and what's wanting to be felt and what's wanting to be embraced by me actually and liberated, because it's in the feeling it gets liberated somewhere, and I feel cleaner and fresher, in a way cleansed by that process.
And talking about the cleansing and clearing and bringing it back to being really grounded, my main love is being a mother and a grandmother. It's my deepest passion. And this work and these circles keep me clear. It keeps me clean so that I can feel nourished and resourced and energised and alive, and go back into the home and bring that into my family. And not separate, because it's like in the beginning it was like, oh, I want more of this and I want to feel this. And for me there's no separation now. It's, you know, it's become integrated, that I'm not different when I step into the circles, when I step into my kitchen. I'm here, I'm present, I'm available.
And that is a really interesting lesson for me too, because, you know, when I step into my circles, or where I'm speaking at a conference, or where I'm doing this, that, or where I'm on TV, for years I was playing a role, like I was doing what I needed to do in that instant. And then in other areas of my life I'll be a different person, but again, that level of authenticity, whether I'm in the office or whether I'm with a client or whatever I'm doing, I'm able to do it from the same space and able to talk as freely and openly from my heart, regardless of what platform I'm on. And that it goes back to that mask. It's not often one mask. We often have various masks depending on what role we're playing.
Who we're with, what the situation is.
Absolutely. So I appreciate that, you know, there are lots of people that are listening, and many of them may be different parts of the world that may not necessarily be able to access the work that you do directly in person. We'll talk about that in a second. But what's kind of, you know, the key bits of advice, like the takeaways that you would suggest for people that are listening right now and are really sort of compelled by everything you said, that really are inspired by kind of the conversation we've had? What are the key things that you would encourage people to do or incorporate into their daily lives to bring about that balance and to be able to step more into authenticity?
I would say to be themselves.
And what does that mean?
It means to be genuine with themselves first off, and to be able to feel what they feel. And if they're not able to do that, to ask for support. For me, the biggest learning has been to reach out and ask for support, and to know that I'm not meant to do this on my own. And even in the asking, it's not about even getting something. It's being willing and humble enough to say, I can't do this on my own. And it's like that creates a shift internally. Yeah, we're not meant to. We're social beings. We're not meant to sit and suffer.
I've spent a lot of my time being a lone warrior, thinking I could only do this myself and not being willing to put my hand up or reach out for support.
And there's a humility and there's a surrender in saying, could you be with me? So for me, it's like to just really be genuine inside and ask for support if you need it, and know that we are absolutely not meant to do this on our own.
Yeah, I totally agree.
I think what was coming to mind for me is if we can trust that life is for us and life is to serve us, and with whatever is happening right here, right now, it's to say, if this is, what might this be about for me? And just really, you know, I really trust people's innate wisdom, and it's like often we're not taught that. We're not taught to go inside and maybe just sit in nature. Nature brings me, anyway, certainly I speak for myself, brings me back home. Just to know that life has actually got things covered. It's like, if this was for me, what could this be about? And just to really look inside and just really, and as Gina said, seek out support of like-minded people. It's, you know, it's easy to get drawn into this drama of life and the story. If we stop the story for a moment and just say, if it's a repeating pattern in particular, what could this be about for me? Where do I need to, if this is a repeating pattern? It's like there was something that came up earlier and I just wanted to ask the question, because for me it's like often looking at life as a mirror. It's like if I'm accusing somebody out there of not doing something for me, is there any way inside of myself that I'm not doing that for me? It's like, you know, if someone's not speaking up for me, where am I not speaking up for myself? And just looking to see, like, how can I use this moment and just be with what is as well, just to really just nurture and take care and just bring the love back to oneself, I think would also be a thing of just self-love for me, is, and compassion. Even when I do make mistakes, is to come back to, actually, I'm just a human being doing the best that I can in this moment, and to be compassionate with myself.
And what I just follow on from that is the respect and the blessing for our own internal process. It's one of my teachers, Pamela, quotes that it's the one thing the mind cannot challenge is respect. And I've seen that over and over. It's like if you just respect somebody else's process genuinely, have a genuine respect for someone, wherever they're at, whatever they need, there's a softening that happens, and
Absolutely. So if people want to find out more, if they are interested in finding out about details of the workshop or dates you're coming up or even booking on, how do they do that?
So the best place is our website, I guess, which is celebrationofbeing.co.uk. And just to see when our groups are. We're doing some online stuff, or I'm doing some online stuff now, which gives the women's work in particular access to people who are not necessarily in this country, because although we run most of our groups here in the UK, we're doing them in Switzerland now as well. And we've got a community that's growing, and we just like to give them access to what's happening. And you know, technology is an amazing thing like this. It's like, who would ever imagine that, you know, this will go out to however many people and they'll get to find out about the work. Celebrationofbeing.co.uk.
Fantastic. And you've got some dates coming up, and I know that there's a date in February. Is that already sold out? It is?
It is sold out,
Fantastic.
yes.
I remember I had to wait more than a year to book on mine, so yeah, if you're a bloke out there interested in Nobleman, get in early, you have to wait a while.
Yeah, and then our women's entry point for the women's celebration of Woman the Goddess is in March. So we've got a few places
There's a
left
few
on
places on that. And I just want to come in really and talk about the quickly healing aspect of the masculine feminine principle inside, because I did the women's work, which was profound, completely natural. There was a resonance. I'm a woman. But then to hold space with the nobleman, it took it to a whole nother level. And I could see every aspect of my own masculine that was either abusive, judgmental, cynical, disowned, and it kind of that was the guiding principle that really led me home. It was the inner balance, because for a woman to be with women for me is the most natural thing in the world, and there was a resting in that. But it's how we show up in the masculine, and for me that was a completely different ballgame.
Yeah.
It's like the mask went back on, the seduction came in. It was like all my ploys and yeah, everything I had in the toolbox came to the table.
And I think that's something that's fascinating for me, like being in an environment where it's just blokes, I will show up in a particular way, but again, you bring the feminine energy, or the females more in
So
particular.
you get to see that, and you get to heal that, and you get to transform and liberate that. So it's hugely healing, and yeah, beautiful, beautiful process.
Amazing. So I'm looking forward to supporting the Nobleman in February, so I'm excited to have a slightly different perspective on the experience. Just want to say that the details of the website will be on the Life Changing Conversations Facebook page, and obviously if you've got dates for any future workshops, let us know and we'll share that with our group as well.
They're all on the website, so you can find that there. But Neil, can I just take the opportunity to thank you for inviting us and following through, and really the work that you do for men. I feel really touched, because I know men need this work just as much as women do, and we see that in every single group that comes our way. And I just know that you're saving people's lives, and that for me is beautiful.
Yeah, and thank you so much, guys. So, appreciate you taking the time to come in today. Now, hopefully we'll get you back on again at some point in the future. There's a few things that I'd like to pick up on and probably have a separate conversation on that alone. Once again, thanks for joining us today, and I'm sure our listeners really enjoyed that.
Thank you. Thank you.